So I thought I would kick off this iQOO 13 unboxing and review with the Wii iQOO Haiku. Brace yourself. iQOO 13. Ooh. Snapdragon 8 Elite. Woof. Get right in my pants. And that right there, kiddies, is my iQOO Haiku, and I think it's safe to say we'll never be doing that again. The iQOO 13 is one of the first Snapdragon 8 Elite phones to land in the UK, making it one of the most stupidly powerful smartphones in existence, while also boasting one of the biggest batteries of any blower in 2024. I've obviously already unboxed the iQOO 13, but I'll slip it back in there and we'll just pretend, eh? So here's my full iQOO 13 unboxing and review after having my SIM slipped in there for about a week. And for more of the latest and greatest tech, please do plug subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So what do you get in the box besides the iQOO 13? Well, you've got yourself a proper chunky 120 watt adapter, bit of Type-C to Type-C USB action, got yourself a porky SIM pin inside a bit of card with some cars on it, and oh yes, a bundled condom case to keep your shiny new blower safe from harm. Now the iQOO 13 is certainly one of the biggest that I've fondled in 2024. It's 6.82 inches. Certainly quite the handful, that's for sure, but it doesn't feel stupidly oversized or anything. I think your uncle is just getting used to handling these massive whoppers. Of course, the proper skinny bezels do help, so there's very little wasted space here. And the hand feel not too bad. I would have preferred a little bit of curvature. You've got quite flat edges there, but at least the corners are rounded off. As you can see, that metal frame is on the shiny side, which does mean it gets a bit smudgy and grubby as well. Certainly would have preferred a matte finish to that, like what you get around the back end. The iQOO 13 sports a glass arse with 3 different designs to choose from, and they've really gone off on one when it comes to naming these different color options. And this right here is the Legend model with a matte white finish, complete with this bit of BMW M Motorsport shenanigans. And all my knowledge of motorsports could fit quite happily on a Flea's G-string. Basically, cars go fast, one wins. But if you don't like that motorsport, Brandon, well, no worries. It's missing in action on the 2 other designs, which are Alpha or Nardo Grey, which is basically just kind of like a silver or a dark grey. A camera bump may look rather sizable, but it doesn't actually poke out of the back end of the iQOO 13 too badly. And the camera bump is actually surrounded by a glowing LED halo known as the dynamic light. It's quite subtle compared with the RGB shenanigans on some gaming smartphones, but it can be used as a notifications light. It's fully customizable inside of the settings. You can just knock it off entirely if you want to. You can schedule when it comes on as well. You can enable it for calls, notifications. You can also have it flashing when you're blasting a bit of music, or just have it on full time if you really want to. Impress the neighbors. You can change up the color that it flashes. You could also change up the effect. Overall, a charming wee addition to the iQOO 13. And just like Oppo's fresh new Find X8 flagships, the iQOO 13 is IP69 rated for dust and water resistance, so it can handle being fully submerged in water, no worries, and can also tolerate being squirted by a high-powered jet, in case you get a bit carried away. And to actually wake the bugger up, you've got an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor built in there, not an optical fingerprint sensor, so it takes an accurate 3D mapping of your thumb and certainly does the job nicely. As you can see, they're super quick, perfectly responsive. And as always, supports a good bit of face unlock as well, which as you can see, they're just as fast acting as that fingerprint sensor. It tends to work pretty well, even in lower light conditions, because that enormous display happily illuminates your mug. As for the software, well, great news, because it's the latest, freshest Android 15 slapped on here right out of the box, with the usual expertly named FunTouch OS jiggling about on top. And apparently the iQOO 13 will enjoy 4 Android OS upgrades, so you're covered all the way up to Android 19, and 5 years of security patching, so not too shabby, if not quite as good as some rivals. And FunTouch, while not one of my favourite launchers by any means, certainly feels nice and slick and fluid here on the iQOO 13, if not quite as smooth and slick as some rivals. I'm thinking the likes of ColorOS and OxygenOS, but it does run nicely, and FunTouch is one of the few launchers that hasn't separated out the control center and the notifications panel, so you've got everything all together in one, which I know some people prefer. Unfortunately, the IQOO 13 also comes absolutely stuffed to the tits with crapware, so straight off the bat, Agoda, Block Blast, Facebook, LinkedIn, random shenanigans like hot games and hot apps. Thankfully, most of this can be deleted. Got the IQOO store if you want to chuck even more money their way, which can't be deleted, unfortunately. And IQOO phones also offer up their own app store, the V App Store. Same as them Vivo blowers, which, yeah, just no. And I have encountered a few charming wee bugs in my week with the IQOO 13 so far, even after the most recent round of updates. So for instance, when you archive a Gmail message from within the notifications panel, the notification will just hang around forever until you eventually swipe it away, rather than just buggering off automatically, as it should. Speaking of the most recent update though, this has added all of Google's standard AI features such as, yes, a good bit of Gemini action, and yes, of course, good bit of circle to search action, no doubt, complete with a powerful bit of haptic feedback here on the IQOO 13 as well, but it's just the basic stuff here, no extras like what the likes of Samsung, etc. slap on their phones. And on the storage side, you've got a choice of 256 or 512 gigs of storage to be packed inside of the IQOO 13, not expandable sadly via micro SD. Now that almighty 6.82-inch screen is of course AMOLED tech, and it's a 3168 by 1440 pixel resolution now, so it's sharpened up a bit compared to the older IQOO 12. Certainly stunning stuff for kicking back with a bit of Netflix or what have you, with HDR10 Plus support as well. The visuals can be fairly vibrant on the default display mode. You can also play around with the colors in the settings if you like. And apparently the IQOO 13's display also has a polarized eye protection layer stuffed inside of it, which helps to mimic natural light, making it more comfortable for prolonged viewing. There's a whole bunch of sciencey bollocks in the reviewer's guide about it, which I won't bore you with, but it's been fully certified by the usual Crowd TV, Rhineland, etc. And the IQOO 13 also sports the usual eye comfort mode options, plus some 2592Hz PWM dimming if you are sensitive to OLED screens and a bit of flickering, while the refresh rate scales from 1 to 144Hz. And the IQOO 13 also serves up a pretty beefy stereo speaker setup.
So it appears that Google hasn't really changed much when it comes to keeping secrets, because news of its impending Pixel 9a is spattered all over the internet, just like your mum's.
Pleasingly punchy so you can hear what's going on if you max out that volume, even if you're in quite a noisy environment. Otherwise, you can of course hook up some Bluetooth headphones. The wireless streaming hasn't been fantastic, just like on the IQOO 12 sadly. When I used the LDAC codec with my headphones, I did find it was quite a juddery performance. Lots of crackling and stuff going on, especially when I was using the IQOO 13, just opening various apps and stuff as I was streaming the audio. So I did end up knocking LDAC off in the end, which seemed to sort it out, although obviously then you're not enjoying quite as high quality audio. But thankfully no such juddering when it comes to the regular everyday performance here on the IQOO 13, as the brains of the operation is Qualcomm's Billy Big Bollocks Snapdragon 8 Elite, which only just launched. And so far I've only tested out on a single other phone, the ROG Phone 9 here in the UK. Backed by 16 tasty gigs of RAM, and apparently that supercomputer chip stuffed inside of the IQOO 12 has been upgraded here to version Q2 to help out with all that gaming shenanigans. Not that that 8 Elite really needs a leg up, to be fair, because it's an absolute beefcake. You got a 2K super resolution graphics booster to keep those visuals crispy, and the IQOO 13 can run supported games at 144Hz refresh, while also serving up a good bit of frame rate stabilization tech to try and keep that action as fluid as possible. And certainly in my gaming experiences here on the IQOO 13, I was well impressed. Wuthering Waves, absolutely maxed to the tits, full graphical extravagance, was handled like absolute child's play by this smartphone, as you would expect by something powered by the crotch-thrustedly beeftastic 8 Elite. That frame rate remains solid and stable, even when things got proper bonkers. I didn't notice a single judder in any of my gameplay. And of course you've got a bloody massive vapor chamber stuffed inside, which helps to keep the IQOO 13 cool under pressure. So even after well over an hour of intense full-on continuous gaming, this phone was still only moderately warm. Just a nice, pleasingly hand-toasting temperature. And of course, courtesy of FunTouch, you've got a dedicated gaming mode with all the basics, including screen recording, notifications, blocking, and the usual performance modes. You could also switch on all of these features pretty much by poking the esports option to be stay focused and guarantee the slickest possible performance. As for the battery tech, well, that is a serious upgrade over the previous generation because you've got a 6,150 milliamp hour capacity cell crammed inside of this lovely shiny chassis. And in my first sort of 2-3 days using the iQOO 13 as my full-time phone, the battery life was merely fine. I typically ended a fairly busy day with around 15 to 20% battery life remaining. I was expecting more. Thankfully, the situation did seem to improve the more that I used the iQOO 13, and as I say, it's had a recent update as well. So now, actually, when I use it in the default balanced mode, I typically end a fairly busy, intensive day, plenty of screen on time. We're talking about sort of at least 5 or 6 hours of that. Usually end with around sort of 40 to 50% battery life, which is impressive stuff. And that's with a good bit of video chat action, plenty of camera use, lots of video and audio streaming. So basically, if you're never off your bloody phone, the iQOO 13 is a solid choice. And yeah, you once again got that supremely nippy 120 watt wires charging as well. So even though it's a freaking massive battery, you won't be hanging around half a day for it to charge up. Certainly faster than most rivals out there, but once again, like the previous gen, no wireless charging support. So hey, why not finish this lovely charming iQOO 13 unboxing and review with a squint at the camera tech. And what we've got here is a triple 50 meg camera. The main shooter uses a 23mm Sony IMX921 sensor, as also found slapped inside of the Vivo X200. Then you've also got yourself a 15mm ultra-wide shooter using Samsung's GN1 sensor, quite a popular one that. And lastly is a 50mm telephoto shooter using another Sony sensor, this time the IMX816. And its usual iQOO camera app slapped on here as well. So you've got all of the camera modes you could possibly ever hope for, including portrait mode, of course, night mode, and a plethora of extras, including a full-on pro mode, which allows you to mess around with the usual ISO levels, white balance, etc., and you can shoot in RAW if you like to edit on the fly. But as always, like most people will do, I just stuck with the default auto mode for my test shots this past week. And I found that everyday photos usually look fine as long as they're shot under the right conditions with a handful of caveats. The iQOO 13 can cope pretty well with HDR type situations, although it will oversaturate at times. And a few of my photos were cropped by lens flaring, while in lower light you'll certainly start to see some grain creeping in there. Plus, if you're trying to snap moving subjects, well, good f***ing luck. Even in reasonable daylight, any kind of motion often resulted in a smeary state like this. Oh, and portrait snaps can look a wee bit smooth, even in the supposedly natural setting. A wee bit gripey there, I know, but the iQOO 13 isn't a bad everyday shooter, just don't expect lifelike results, and if you are snapping a kid or a cat, or anything with free will that moves around of its own volition, then for the love of God, just snap about 50 pics of it to make sure at least one of them might come out alright. As for those ultra-wide and telephoto alternatives, well, they're also rather limited. They sure don't like low-light scenarios for one. They are happier in daylight, and with the telephoto snapper, just don't crop in any more than about sort of 5 times, 6 times, otherwise things start to look a bit, yeah. And inside the Albums app, you do have your obligatory AI editing tools, including good old AI Eraser, of course. This does an acceptable job, generally, of removing just random stuff that you don't want inside your pictures. You've also got an AI Photo Enhancer tool, which can do all the graft on your behalf. Although sadly, this usually has minimal effect, and it can't help sort out all that pesky blurring. And if you like to shoot home movies on your smartphone, well, you can actually capture up to 8K resolution footage at 30 frames per second. Otherwise, if you prefer a more fluid, lifelike vibe, bit of 4K at 30 or 60 frames per second. And again, like the photo capture, this is simply fine on the iQOO 13. Those visuals aren't exactly detail-packed, even at Ultra HD resolution and above, especially if that light is against you. But no problems with the audio capture, even if things are quite gusty. And last up around front, you've got a 32 megapixel selfie shooter. Here's some pictures of my face, as if you weren't already sick to death of it. And using that front-facing camera, you could also shoot up to 4K resolution footage at 30 or 60 frames per second, as I'm doing right now. Stabilization, not the best. You'll want to keep your hand fairly steady, but absolutely fine for your video chat type shenanigans. Anyway, that right there in a tasty wee nutshell, kiddies, is what I reckon of the iQOO 13. And certainly the two big reasons to buy this massive blower is performance and battery life. I don't mind a bit of FunTouch, though it's not my favourite launcher out there and absolutely stuffed with crapware as well. On the camera side of things, it's a bit more basic than some rivals, but overall, as I say, absolute beefcake. So if you're a gamer, you'll probably enjoy a bit of all that, and more demand and power users will be able to absolutely smash this thing. Hours and hours of screen on time, and should still comfortably make it to bed with plenty of charge. And just remember to bung a cable in it when it does need powering back up. So that's what this bald northern git reckons anyway. What do you guys reckon of the iQOO 13? Great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. Hopefully got some more Snapdragon 8 Elite reviews coming your way imminently. And have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!